Alex Wooden on 100% Canadian Maple Stir-Up.
Hello and welcome to the Daily Rant. I'm Alex Wooden. And so, as of Monday the 21st of October, 2019, King Justin Trudeau, the wrong and dishonorable, is rethroned, this time with a so-called minority rule. Since the first few months into his reign, I've asked people, almost everyone that I've met, what do you think about Trudeau? And although the content of the answers varied from his failures with empty promises made to the Aboriginal communities, the support and purchase of the Trans Mountain Pipeline with our tax dollars from an oil giant while playing up the narrative his government is championing climate change, to failing to provide jobs or innovation, in spite of the fact his party has enjoyed a majority since they came to power in 2015, meaning any bill had little to no way of being stopped, short of a union of every party against them, unlikely with the newly founded and weapons contract-hungry Conservatives. But let's not forget the veterans. The Liberals gained the support of many veterans based on their promise to bring back the pension for life and their pledge to increase funding in the program. However, once they got into power with a majority, they did the exact opposite. In fact, Trudeau's Liberals slashed a whopping $1.8 billion in pension funding for disabled Canadian veterans. Why, as his first official act, PM King Trudeau authorized and finalized the sale of 900 armored assault vehicles, topped off with mounted machine guns to Saudi Arabia, saying only that Canada needs to show we honor our business commitments. Even though the deal was drawn up by the Harper government, he finalized it and pushed it through. This right before the outbreak of the Yemen genocide, Canada's proud contribution to the war crimes of the oil-rich, religious ethnic cleansing fanatics upon a poor farming-based country. A national disgrace. After that pathetic show, most people quickly realized we had swallowed the hook again. Yes, since his very first day in the highest office in the nation, he has shown his true colors. No pun intended. His approval rating and public esteem dipped and never recovered. After legalizing cannabis 3 years after his election, practically at the end of his elected term, his plan revealed that Canadians could still be put in jail for certain cannabis offenses that would now amount to not paying tax, but be closer on par with firearms offenses in the time sentenced. There would be no clearing of people's records who were charged with selling or possessing small amounts, that there would be a $5,000 fee to apply to grow cannabis legally, and an absurd lottery system to give authorization to sell cannabis, in which you'd have to pay your fees, set up your business, and if you were lucky, you'd be able to open in a timely fashion, although any error in paperwork and your lottery place could be jeopardized. Corruption on paper while giving us the platitude of taking power away from the criminals. What he really meant was giving the monopolized profits to fat cats, the real organized crime lords, while giving almost no real economic or consumer benefit to Canadians who had been waiting for a cannabis industry and the economic boosts of it since the mid-70s, with concentrates and edible cannabis still highly illegal, being boosted to the same level as possessing heroin. From a government that constantly claims to be helping the middle class and helping people to join it, he has put forth no guaranteed jobs program to incorporate the new budding cannabis industry. Instead, letting billionaires unfairly conquer the brand new green gold mine and still charging people for failing to pay taxes or dues and selling or buying outside of the law on a now legal plant. With approximately 56,000 Canadians being arrested for cannabis-related offenses while he was PM from 2015 to 2019 before enacting any cannabis legislation. All he would have had to do was remove the plant for being a Schedule I drug or allow personal cultivation, decriminalization, to cut out the black market, or even the most obvious, full decriminalization for even small amounts. But no steps taken, despite the majority. In fact, his government party actively defended the fact it would not decriminalize in the meantime, with a long list of reasons for the fact. But the complaints aren't all about the blaze of glory that he's enjoyed. He has said over and over, we have a serious problem with our addiction to fossil fuel as a nation, and yet the only thing he has done to fight the fossil fuel industry, pollution, and climate change? A carbon tax that delivers a very small amount of cash to each family, while allowing polluters to keep on polluting. He admits big oil and gas have an effect on our health, our environment, and perhaps most important in this context, the economy. And his solution? Is it a national jobs program, building up the country's energy grid and producing low-cost, high-efficiency solar panels and wind turbines, putting people back to work, providing for the massively undermet national demand for cannabis at an affordable price and of good, pure quality? No. But a Trans-Canada Mountain Pipeline expansion, among others, that he bought for all of Canada's population for the next 50 years. Total ownership percentages on the SAGD and the CSS projects that are operating or under construction is 48.8% for Canada, 30.4% for the United States of America, 8.6% for China, 4.5% for France, 3.2% for the Netherlands, 1.8% for the UK, 1.4% for Japan, and 1.2% for Norway. That's exports and shares, with two of the largest oil sands projects being 1/3 owned by the Chinese Communist government. And this pipeline also caused most of oil refinery jobs in Canada due to the fact that the product is shipped elsewhere, destroying the argument that it's good for Canadian jobs market or the economy. He seems to be more concerned about what China and the US, as well as the Saudis, think of him than the Canadians that supposedly elected him. But recently, a photo of the PM emerged with him wearing blackface, shocking some and sending others into a PC rage, while most of us thought it was a joke in the face of his real crimes. Even still, the media and a lot of people were disgusted for their own reasons, and rightfully so. So, I ask you this, humble listener. Ask people today that you meet, did you vote for King Justine? And if so, why? My guess is you'll hear what I have heard for the past 4 years. No one supports this long-nosed jester. Everyone sees him as a national embarrassment, while most young people advocate for the NDP or Green Party, and they hold almost no seats. I'm skeptical of the legitimacy of the vote count, to say the very least. Even the Conservatives, who I hate with a passion as the criminals that they really are the same party essentially, had much more support that was tangible, although smaller when compared to a census from people in the community, at the bus stop, or on the job. Supposedly, some of his most angry and unsatisfied Canadians, largely Aboriginal communities, the Yukon and Northwest Territories, voted for him, something I find hard to believe in the face of all the facts, but especially the fact that he has just appealed a court ruling that would have given up $50,000 to residential school survivors, and his substanceless missing and murdered Indigenous women's campaign garnishing only sympathies nationally and producing almost no results, but insulting apologies with an empty oil-soaked mitt. Many northern communities not having access to basic things like clean drinking water, plumbing, or affordable groceries, lack of community supports and mental health outreach services, internet, or other basic comforts in addition to infrastructure the first world enjoys, not only on the reserves, but in their rural communities as well. And with BC, Nunavut, Manitoba, and half of Ontario making it clear that they want NDP, we are told that the West wants to separate from Canada over oil jobs and the Trans Mountain expansion. We are also led to believe that most of Quebec, not some, want independence from Canada, as if it were some kind of ultimatum. And though it may be impossible and just fear-mongering, it's extremely bad for national sentiment, morale, and unity. Although bold shouts of a nation falling apart and becoming their own independent entities are largely being amplified by people who have an interest in a nation divided and still feeding their oil greed, possibly to fatter margins in a divided Canada, the complaints of feeling ignored and neglected should not be disregarded. Because the western provinces and Quebec aren't the only ones who feel like the government is extracting and managing our nation's wealth. The entire nation does. We know what we are capable of, and we know what we deserve. We also know it's realistic and easy to implement. And yet, somehow, the emperor that everyone can see is wearing no clothes whatsoever seems to be beginning a new march around the country, flashing and offending all those who dare pay him any attention, appearing accessible at town halls, but dancing around questions, or just refusing to answer and moving on, or leaving his beauty and whimsical wit the focus of the media around the world. An excellent dance partner for Trump, if I do say so myself. He, being an involuntary representation of us, embarrassing and portraying us as weak, foolish, and subservient to China, the U.S., and anyone who wants to buy a chunk of Canada from the bloody King Justine and his men. Well, I know Canada is aware we are able to do much more than the PM in the last 30 years of government has planned for us. We are a nation of innovation and resolve. We are builders, but also leaders in social consciousness. We know what is right and just. We are right and honorable, and we can see a wolf in sheep's clothing. Or perhaps in Trudeau's case, a scraggly coyote. But this coyote has a deadly case of rabies. Now is the time for us as a nation to learn the lesson we have needed desperately to be made clear by a foolish cuck jester like Justine, making us all look and feel much weaker and sillier than we are, barking at Trump, then cleaning his swampy toes obediently as a pooch for pepperoni dog treats. But it's important to make clear here, the Conservative Party has been cutting veteran services since they were founded in 2003. In 2007, Stephen Harper's Conservative government changed Canada's disability benefits for veterans, replacing lifelong pension payments with a new Veterans Charter that included one-time maximum $360,000 payout and a complex pension entitlement system. No leader in Parliament will save us. No representative can be trusted to govern for the people. We know what we want. We know how to get it. Why let so-called leaders decide how our GDP is sent, how it's made, decide to sell or basically give away our nation's biggest export to China's slave-based economy that gives its citizens less rights than a pit bull puppy in Quebec? Decide that it's okay to sell weapons of death to the Muslim supremacist theocratic dictatorship of cruel King Saudi Arabia? Decide that billionaires can take over the new industry that could literally move most Canadians into the upper class, let alone the middle, with a national jobs program. Sure, the voting system is broken. Electoral reform is needed, badly. But are we to wait for the Tru-Dum government, or any other for that matter, to enact legislation that removes or limits their power and their cut of the loot? Do I think that the election was influenced? The numbers falsified? Well, I definitely do. But that is a mere symptom of a much greater and grave sickness in our country's zeitgeist of political mental health. I think the logic is clear. If we ever want the Canada that we know is possible, run by and for Canadians, we'll need more than a greater of two evils, fear-based voting once every 4 years system we enjoy now, or a knockdown of the first past the post, theaters. We need to restructure Parliament into a citizen-filled assembly. We need to bring criminal charges to our leaders and the companies that have lobbied and lied us into pipelines and giving away our income tax dollars to oil barons to subsidize their unprofitable, often abandoned boondoggle projects. We need to have a new Labor Day set of nationwide strikes. We need a revolution. Because when we let bullshit votes in a backward system of paid lobbyists and career criminals who call themselves politicians dictate our nation's future, we all become slaves. Whether the chain is red, blue, green, or orange, we need to be involved in history, or we'll be history. Long live Canada. May the provinces realize that what is tearing us apart can also be exactly what will bring us all back together. The problems that need to be solved: energy, lack of jobs, the economy, and the lack of legal cannabis, poor cancer treatment, and any other can bring us prosperity, not cost us it. After all, I think Canada would agree to pay Canadians with Canadian tax dollars to fix our issues with pleasure and contentedly rather than give money to a powerful elite group that has lorded over us, given us the trickle down, and told us to be grateful. I think that we are all capable of governing ourselves. The question that remains, does Canada? After all, a great man, the most prolific and successful revolutionary in history, once said, "Out of adversity comes opportunity." That man's name? Ben Franklin. He also said, "War is when your government tells you who your enemy is, and a revolution is when you decide for yourself." I'm Alex Wooden, and this is the Daily Rant. Remember, we are all citizens of Earth. We are all children of Eden.